Hi guys, Jessie here with another Down Dog update. Today, Seane Corn has graciously agreed to join me for an interview. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
It's great to have you here, and we are at the Yoga Journal Conference in New York City for 2016, and it is a very exciting year. There's a lot of stuff going on, and really awesomely, you have just come back from a 4-month sabbatical, and if you know Seane Corn, she's an international yoga teacher and travels all over the world, so you probably really needed that 4 months break. It's something that you haven't done in 18 years of teaching, you said, and she's an activist, and so she's extremely active with everything that she does with her nonprofit of Off the Mat and Into the World and what she has going on with yoga votes. And so thank you so much for everything that you contribute, because I feel like you really go above and beyond just sharing your gifts as a yoga teacher with us, but you're really active in the communities and with doing stuff around the world even. It's very inspiring.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And your workshops here, how's the weekend going?
Everything's been amazing. I mean, like you said, I took a 4-month sabbatical, so this is the first time back teaching. But you know, I've been teaching for almost 25 years, so it's pretty much like riding a bicycle, walking into the room and having all that energy. It's just the words come and everything flows, and so it's been a real joy to teach again, and also to have those 4 months really influence what's coming through me right now. There's a little bit more self-care in my conversation than has been in the past.
Yeah? Mm-hmm. And what else have you found that you've learned through this time of introspection and everything that you've done over those past 4 months coming back to your yoga practice now?
Well, taking the sabbatical wasn't really a rest sabbatical. It was to write a book. Okay. And so there was a lot of work that was being done while I was home. Yeah. But I've been on the road, I'm on the road 250 days a year for 18 years. So this is the longest amount of time I've been at home at any one stretch. So even though I was still working and writing a book, which was very cathartic in and of itself, just waking up in my own bed and being able to get on a schedule and just see friends and go for hikes and just do what perhaps people take for granted, it was just such a luxury for me. I felt there was way more balance in my life than have been in a long time, because I'm on airplanes and in hotels and eating food wherever I can find it. And that's just my life. That's just my experience. So this was very refreshing and grounding, supportive. I really learned I want to bring more of that into my experience. And so still be on the road, but find more opportunities to also be at home. And writing the book was very cathartic. I'm not done yet, but I'm deeply in that process still. But I learned a lot about my spiritual practice and the levels of commitment that I have, and also what I hope for the future of the yoga community in terms of encouraging them, mentoring them into stepping into leadership. Yeah, and now I also follow you on Instagram, and I was aware that you are making a yoga video as well. So you have been very busy, not traveling, and writing a book is a huge undertaking. So that makes sense that you really have to commit a lot of time to do that, unless you want it to take years possibly to finish it. Now the video, is that something that is coming out soon? And can you talk a little bit about what that's going to be? The DVD is going to be out in May, I think May 15th or 17th, and it's called Mystic Flow. It's the third of a 3-part series called that live under the umbrella of the Yoga of Awakening. It's about 30 hours of content. The first program is Body Mind Flow. The second one is Chakra Flow, and those two are already out. And Mystic Flow is the third and final part of this offering. And it's deep work. It deals a lot with both the physical aspect of the practice of yoga, but also the mind-body connection, where it lives in the body, how to identify trauma, how to do really kind of an emotional purification, so to prepare us to utilize our yoga practice in a more ritualistic way. And that's what Mystic Flow is about. It's about using your body to pray, empowering yourself by being a real conduit for spirit and for source, and to get out into the world and make a difference, whether it's in your family or in your local community or on a national level, but to really look at your own personal role as a leader and as a game changer, but from the inside out. And Mystic Flow really supports both the spiritual practice, but also activation and participation, and looking at now what? Meaning, now that I'm happier and healthier, what do I actually do to make a difference?
Yes, and speaking of making a difference, obviously we know 2016 is a big year, we're voting, and I know you have yoga votes, so would you talk a little bit about how we can make a difference maybe politically this year?
I think it's a really important conversation. It's when you talk, very often people think that the politics should live over here and the yoga practice live over here, and that makes zero sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah.
Because in the practice of yoga, you're talking about unification and relationship with the planet, relationship with each other, relationship with spirit.
Yeah.
So anywhere where we're seeing division, where people don't have access to resources or education or healthcare, things like that, it is political, and we have to be able to participate and get involved and hold our leaders accountable so as to make policies that really support the health, the wellness, the sustainability for all beings across the board.
Yeah.
And so the yoga community is quite large, it's massive, and these are people who have strong values, whether it comes to the environment or to the human condition.
Right.
And so we encourage people to vote their values, to get out there. We don't tell people who to vote for because it's not appropriate, but we do encourage people to really look at the candidates. What do they believe in? Do their beliefs support the values that you hold dear? And if not, maybe really look at other candidates to see who is more in alignment. Or, like I said, reach out and hold your leaders accountable. So we want to encourage everyone in the yoga community to get out there, to get registered and vote when election day comes. Or if you're a yoga school, put out pamphlets where people can register right there at the studio and really encourage people to get involved. Our vote makes a difference. Our participation certainly makes a difference.
Yeah.
And this is a really critical time for all of us. And as we can see, the nation is very, very polarized. And so we have a lot of healing that has to happen. And who better than the yoga and the wellness community to really help to bridge some of those gaps. And apathy is not appropriate at a time like this or ever. It's really empathy and engagement.
Yeah, I think it is important, and we start on the mat with ourselves, and then that reflects our surroundings. So it is very important to be engaged and to exercise the right to vote and to help make the world a better place, because we start with making ourselves better, but at the end of the day, we also have to contribute and to really step off the mat, as you have coined the term, and make our communities better, and to make sure we elect people that are doing the right thing and the thing that is best for people and for everybody, instead of maybe for the wrong reasons. People make decisions a lot of the time, so I think that is very important. Yesterday you did a full day workshop and you talked about being an international teacher and maybe traveling and all that, and I was just wondering, there was a question posed about how do you go about doing that? And interestingly, you might have some insight into, well, I mean, you've been doing it for so long, but then you had this 4-month break, and how do you balance everything that you do? So for those people who maybe want to do more, be more of a touring yoga teacher or that kind of thing, what do you suggest? And maybe also, what kind of insights do you have into that?
Well, to become a traveling yoga teacher, it's not something I personally set out to do. It's, I was teaching, and then I started to get invitations. People would come to my class who were from other neighboring states and would say, would you ever be interested in doing a class or workshop at my school in Texas or in Arizona? And my answer was just yes. And because what happened, even if there was only 5 people in the class, usually it was a studio owner from another state or city, and then they would invite me. And so there was a lot of work, a lot of hustle to make that happen. But it's not for everybody. Being on the road and traveling is really, really difficult. There's airplanes and hotels, and it's difficult to have access to healthy food, and time changes and things like that, and you're away from your family. So there's a real lack of balance. And so you have to have a certain constitution to want to do it. I can understand why people would think it's a really good idea, and yet if they were actually doing it, they might find that the compromises are greater than the reward. And so you have to know what your temperament is. I have wanderlust. I love to travel, and I also my family supports me doing what I do, and that is 90% of the battle. And so if people want to do this, though, they have to just study hard, work really hard, teach as often as possible, but teach really efficiently and effectively, be amazing at what you're doing, and people will invite you. I don't solicit, I don't reach out and ask.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who do that, but I feel like the market's very saturated that way. I am a big believer that just show up, be excellent and committed, and it will magnetize people who want to work with you and who will invite you into their schools. And that's really the way it starts to unfold.
Yeah. And you have been doing this for a long time. You started in 1994.
Yeah, as a yoga teacher.
Yes. And I was wondering also, because there's so much change over these years with technology and everything like that, I was just curious of your insight as to like how yoga has evolved with like all this technology and just over the course of the years that you've been a yoga teacher.
Yeah, it's changed dramatically. Obviously, with Instagram and Facebook, none of that existed when I first started teaching. I don't even think there was laptops. You know? So it was very personal. It was one-on-one. It was collective. There was a lot of interaction and engagement. Yeah. It's a little different now in that a lot of the engagement is being done via online. And I think there's really positives to that, and there are some negatives. But it continues to evolve and grow. And I'm a big believer, yoga, the very nature of yoga is that it's an evolutionary practice. It's constantly growing. Yeah. But it's a very powerful practice. And I think that it would be disingenuous to set back and say, well, that's not the way yoga should be, and it shouldn't be presented like that, and have judgment around it. Because when I was coming up in the yoga scene back in the 90s, vinyasa flow, power yoga, these were the things that were, the senior teachers then rolled their eyes and made fun of. And look the impact that vinyasa flow and power yoga has had on the mainstream yoga community today in a very, very positive way. So it would, again, be disingenuous if I or other people like myself sat back and discredited the evolution of yoga via this online birth as something flawed, wrong, or bad, because I don't know the impact that this might have on many people who wouldn't have access to public classes. Yeah. So I can't help but think it's a good thing. It's a positive thing. I don't love the sexualization of yoga. Things like that can bother me personally because it's such a sacred practice, and it needs to be, for me, it needs to be something that's very safe. Yeah. And sometimes with the sexualization of things, there's exploitation that goes along with that, that can be alienating to some, unsafe for some, polarizing. But again, I have to do what I do, stay in integrity, stay authentic, and hopefully show up as a mentor and a leader to those who are younger, who are coming up in the internet world, and hopefully my influence will impact them as well as their influence inspire me.
Yeah, definitely. And there was a recent study, and there's a lot of people that are curious to try yoga that haven't yet, so we plan and hope that many more people will come to yoga. And do you have any thoughts about what the future of yoga might look like, or any kind of path that you see yourself taking specifically?
Yeah, I don't know what the future of yoga is going to look like. I imagine it's going to be wide, broad, diverse. I believe there are communities of yoga, not a yoga community. There are many different groups, different factions of people doing yoga at this time. And it would be nice to see these communities start to work together to actually move the needle and make a difference, rather than just focus on what's on the mat, see that broader picture of what can be done when we actually aggregate this energy. Yeah. I really do believe we can be quite impactful. As far as myself, you asked that question about where do I see myself?
Yeah, like a particular direction you might be taking or something?
This year I'm going to be 50 years old. I'll be practicing, like I said, teaching yoga, almost 22 years, I think. I'd like to think that I will continue to be a leader in the community. I'd like to mentor people more. Yeah. I'd like to encourage people, yoga teachers especially, to see what's possible on how to use your platform in a really positive way. I hope I can continue to model back being real and authentic and committed to truth,
yeah.
and being willing to continually bring God into the yoga room and not be afraid of the power of spirituality, while simultaneously giving people a really powerful and strong physical experience.
Yeah.
I see myself stepping into doing more public speaking, doing more service-related work, but from still with the groundwork of consciousness as the through line.
Yeah.
Those are some of the things I see for myself. You know, I can't really predict the future, but I know that everything that I've done in the past is informing the direction that I will be moving in.
Yeah.
But I do hope that my role is in supporting other people in finding their voice and taking advantage of this leadership position for the benefit of others.
Yeah, definitely. And you're still working through your book, you said, but you plan on having that released in the future, or your DVD that we can go somewhere, and where do you want to send people? On your website? Or
the DVDs will be the final DVD will be released in May through Sounds True or Amazon. You can always go to my website, SeaneCorn.com, to find out what I'm up to, my schedule, and the products that I do have. The book will be probably available, I think, fall of 2017. The working title is The Yoga of Awakening, but I don't know yet. We're just in the process of editing it. So I've written 230 pages, which by the time it gets edited might end up being like 12. And so I don't know yet, you know, what the status of that is. Right. But I'm deeply committed to spending my whole year just really fleshing that out and seeing just what's going to come through me in that form. I've never written a book before, so it's I'm a public speaker, and I'm comfortable communicating in a classroom, but putting word to paper is always a little bit more challenging.
Yeah,
so
that's very exciting. It's just like with everybody's first time with doing something, it's a little bit of trial and error, but we're looking forward to checking that out, definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you'll be doing some more classes. You'll be at Wanderlust, and so hopefully, if you have not taken a class with Seane, I highly recommend it. I've done multiple classes, and so it's always a great experience. So thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right,
Peace.
We'll see you next time. Namaste.